morning, everybody. Get everything started here. All right, week of April 12th, lab on the 12th, Monday. We're going to do a concrete saw operation and safety. Concrete saw is obviously used for cutting concrete. Metal pipes is usually another aspect of it. A couple different types of concrete saws. I'll show you a couple pictures of those. Obviously show you the one that we have and the one that we will use. And you know, for a lab, I think I've thought of a couple different things that we can do. One thing that I think will be enjoyable, we're going to try to do some teamwork, have each team kind of build a little something so we can use the saw to cut it, and then have everybody on the team cut a certain section and then see who's got some straight lines and some nice curves and some things like that. So got a good little plan for Monday's lab, to utilize the saw, a couple other pieces of equipment to try to prep the area. So I think that'll be a good thing. Concrete saw is a powerful tool, very handy, very useful, especially in the landscape horticultural business. But there are some safety guidelines that you need to be aware of and you need to respect, very similar to, quite frankly, any of the other equipment that we use, but very similar to a chainsaw type thing. You know, there's other hazards when you're using a chainsaw with trees, your surrounding area, and things along that line. So it's very important to understand all that aspect. Concrete saw is very similar. Even though you might be thinking that you're just cutting a piece of concrete, you never know what somebody's put in that concrete, what's under that concrete, all kinds of different things. So there are some definite safety measures that we're going to talk about and that we need to put in place, or you need to understand and put in place at your business and whatnot. So this is similar to what we have at the school. Okay. It's handheld. You know, that blade pretty much does all the work. Obviously, it's a diamond cut blade, cut through metal, cut through concrete. You don't need it to cut through plastics or anything less than that. You wouldn't use this for wood. You wouldn't do that type of thing with this saw. The blade is too expensive, and it's not the right application for what you need to do. So metal pipes is what this is very common for, cutting metal pipes and cutting concrete. So this is a handheld one, very versatile. Keep it in your truck, put it on your landscape truck, put it in your pickup truck, whatever the case is. Here's one too. I think we just bought something like this at the school. They have on campus, not out at our farm. Not exactly like this, but kind of more of the table concrete saw, right? To where you are putting, you're running them through manually, right? You're running everything through manually. It's waist level, that type of thing. Useful as well. We'll go back just to try to show you this little connector piece here. This is for your hose. Concrete saws you can run with or without water. So this is a little connection for the water. Even this handheld one you can run with water, and then you can obviously operate it without water as well. Running it with the water helps keep down dust. And the dust itself from concrete, rock, all those types of things is very toxic. So you do it for multiple reasons, but the main reasons being the dust, keeping the dust down, which is toxic, right? And it kind of preserves that blade a little bit because it keeps it a little cooler. That water is going to lubricate it a little bit. You don't need it to lubricate, but it'll keep that blade cooler, lasts a little bit longer. Same thing here. Don't know where the hose connection is here, but you can kind of see the tube feeding on the top. So they'll have a little drip that runs through that blade. Same thing. When you're standing in front of this one, right, when you're at waist level, face level, all that type of stuff, all that dust is really right here at your chest, right here. Not saying that if you were using a concrete saw and you're bent over, cutting something on the ground, driveway, sidewalk, whatever the case is, that you're not going to be close to it with your face. But this is right there at it, arm's length away, type thing. Okay, and then there's the big boy, big concrete saw. You've probably seen those on the street somewhere where they're cutting through the asphalt. They have these as well. You can see the water. It's wet here. That water's doing that, keeping the dust down, and doing some lubricating for that saw too. That big saw get very hot, spinning very rapidly, obviously. So it's getting very hot as it's cutting through. That water helps lubricate it, keep it cool, extends the life of it a little bit. So as you can see here, a saw like this, it's a pretty thick piece of, looks more like granite or something, but I mean, I guess it could be just plain concrete. I don't know. But something along this line, you can see the thickness to where there's multiple things that could be in that concrete slab, right? Somebody may have buried a pipe just below that. So when you're cutting all the way through that concrete slab, you can hit that pipe where they didn't think anyone would come through and cut it all the way 12 inches deep or 12 inches thick, kind of what this looks like, right? It could be rebar in there, some reinforcements, all kinds of different things that could be in that pipe or in that concrete. That blade will cut through it, but you just have to be aware of how that machine this size, probably not going to affect it. It might kick it, it might rattle it a little bit, but your handheld that you're holding as it's down in that concrete, it's going to kick, it's going to jar, it's going to do a couple different things, jump, as you hit different things in that concrete. So that's what we're here to talk about. That's what we're to discuss, so we can be aware as we're doing those things. A couple statistics, I kind of like to give these a little bit. There's nothing specific on concrete saws. It's more just saws in general. But, doesn't include chainsaws. These are circular saws, wood saws, band saws, things along that line. But concrete saws are within this statistic for what the Consumer Product Safety Commission keeps track of. So in 2001, there were 93,888 saw-related injuries, 39%, right? So close to 40% were associated with stationary saws. Table saws were predominant, followed by band saws, radio arm saws, powered hack saws, okay? 18% were associated with portable and handheld saws. So we could be in that category, and we could be in this 43% with unspecified saws, right? So ours is a portable or a handheld, but either which way, a concrete saw could be lumped into this 18 to 43%, so close to 60% worth of saw-related injuries could be a portion of that concrete saw. So very serious, numerous injuries. You know, I can imagine that there are that there are many injuries that you can have with a circular saw, table saw, whatever the case is. But you know, it's similar same with a chainsaw, right? When we talk about chainsaw safety and the injuries that happen, they're pretty rough. They're pretty gruesome, right? That saw that cuts through a finger or a foot or, you know, something, you know, it's I mean, it's cutting through it. It's not getting stuck and stopping, right? It's gonna do some damage. So we talk about a little bit about defects because, you know, when you're dealing with something along this line, you want to be cognizant and aware of things to look for on your saw, right? So, you know, is your blade in check? Is there any damage? Is there anything defective? Can you see any sort of cuts or shards in that blade before you even start it up, right? Safety guard, is it intact? Is it doing what it's supposed to be? Is there a kickback dog failure aspect, right? Kickback dog is very similar to the chainsaw dog, okay? And the altered concrete saw, right? Just like any other piece of equipment, you know, we don't want to alter it. If we alter it, even when we talked about the side-by-side, the Gator, right? You want to put on manufacturer-specific alterations, if you will, right? Amendments, whatever it is that you're altering, make sure it's in the manual. Make sure it's in the safety manual that for that specific saw, for that specific brand, for that specific manufacturer, all that type of stuff. So you're looking at what they're allowing you to do and what they're not allowing you to do. You know, you want to make sure, you know, that blade is the right blade for that saw, all those types of things. So just a couple of things to look for as you take that saw off the truck and you think you're going to use it for the day, okay? So what are some of the injuries? Lacerations, amputations, all those are most common, right? But you got facial injuries, eye injuries, things are still kicking up, right? You're still cutting debris, you're still cutting something and there's debris that's kicking up, dust, all kinds of little shards, all kinds of little things, right? Crushed digits, limbs, something drops on it, whatever the case is. And traumatic brain injuries, right? I mean, you know, all those things can happen. So very serious injuries related with this piece of equipment. You know, I don't want to put this piece of equipment ahead of any other piece of equipment as far as danger, so to speak. But you know, this is a piece of equipment that is heavier than a chainsaw, that has a blade just as sharp as a chainsaw, that can cut through more than a chainsaw blade can cut through. And you know, it's just a piece of equipment to respect and understand, you know, how quickly an injury can occur and how damaging and how severe, you know, an injury with this type of saw can happen. So what are some of the PPE that we look at, right? I mean, he has his gloves on, he's got long pants, long shirt. You know, there's still debris that's kicking up as you're cutting through that you know, in the picture here, concrete block, right? So I mean, as he's cutting through it, just like as you cut through wood and there's shavings and there's chips that come out, right? I mean, this is going to be dust that comes out of it. Very similar type things, but there's still going to be chunks. You know, they're going to be finer, but there's still chunks that come out of, you know, what you're sawing. So you want to have steel toe boots, hearing protection, face shield, safety glasses. All those types of things are going to help you with this piece of equipment. like I say, it's heavier than a chainsaw. So if you're doing a lot of cutting, a long run of a cut, you need to respect the piece of equipment, respect yourself for knowing what you can and cannot handle, um, all those types of things, okay? So what are some of the risks? The silica dust. The silica dust is serious. Serious that we'll talk about OSHA getting involved here in a moment, right? So that dust comes from cutting concrete, cutting rock, those types of things is what that silica dust is. So, you have saw kickback with this type of thing, just like you did with a chainsaw. The fumes, the dusts, the fumes, all that type of stuff. Collapsing walls, depends on what you're cutting. If you're cutting something on the side, no different than if you're cutting a vertical tree, cutting a vertical wall, those types of things. Your blades can fracture. They have teeth on them as well. So if a tooth on one of these breaks off, where's that blade go? It's going to shoot somewhere, right? Electrocution. So when you're cutting into concrete, like I say, you don't know what's in that concrete, right? You hope you know what's in that concrete. You think you know what's in that concrete. You think those electrical lines that go underneath the driveway that you're getting ready to cut out because you're putting pavers down are deep enough, but if you've done any landscape out and you've got lines marked, they are not always as deep as they should be, and they are not always marked right on the line either. For not trying to veer off, but if you have an electrical line that is marked in a concrete driveway, and you're cutting that concrete driveway up, and you got to cut across that line. I mean, technically that line is marked, and on 18 inches of both sides of that line is the leeway that they give the guy marking the line. So I mean, that's 3 feet, right? So you got 3 feet within that area that technically that line can be. So if you're cutting through that, you don't know, you don't know those types of things. There's standards, there's protocols in place that those lines should be deep for things along that line, for those instances. But there are times when lines are not where they're supposed to be, they're not marked properly, all those types of things. So you take that saw through an active electrical line, it's not a good deal. Noise, very loud, louder than a chainsaw. The vibration in your hands, and obviously, the slips and the falls, those types of things can happen as well. So we talk about the dust, right? Silica dust, gets into OSHA, right? OSHA has, I'm not saying because OSHA is involved, it's serious, right? It can be serious without OSHA being involved. But if you look here, right, I mean, there's 42 pages from OSHA on silica standards and constructions. And what are these crystals? What does it do when it's in your lungs, right? How do you, if you're exposed to it? All this type of stuff. So, I'm not going through this OSHA fact sheet. It's obviously in here on the slides for your reference. Take a look at it, refer back to it when you are out in the field, when you graduate this class, when you graduate this program. Take this information. This is serious stuff. I don't want to sound cliche. I don't want to sound dorky. But it is, people die from this type of stuff, and you need to be aware of it, especially if it's something that you utilize every day. If you do a lot of concrete or a lot of paver installations, you do a lot of landscape construction, you will use a concrete saw a lot. So, the more you are exposed to these types of things, the more safety measures, I shouldn't say the more safety measures you should take, but the more, more cognizant of it that you need to be. You need to make sure that you're safe, number one. Number two, that your employees are safe, right? So, This is serious stuff. Like I say, it's pretty in depth. You know, this is an OSHA document on this type of thing, so it's very serious. Get my other screen up over on this side. Here he is using his saw for the rock. He doesn't have the water hooked up to it, right? So you're kicking out a whole lot of dust. You know, the water would help reduce that dust, you know, eliminate it to a certain extent. But you know, you're not always going to have access to a hose bib, so you know that's kind of the point of it, right? I mean, he's probably not in the best of positions in order to operate this, right? I mean, he does have safety glasses on, no gloves. He does have long sleeves. They're rolled up, and he does have long pants on. They're probably steel toe boots. He does have his hearing protection in, so I mean, he's doing fairly decent. You know, but if he's doing a lot of cutting with this saw and he's exposed to this dust for a very long time, he needs to think about putting on a mask, right? He needs to think about putting on something so he's not breathing that dust in, you know, all day or all week or whatever it is that however long he's using this thing, right? So some of the risks involved, very similar to some of the other saws with the chainsaw, right? We had kickback, pushback, pull in, all those types of things are very similar to the chainsaw. Okay, obstructions in the concrete, like I was saying, you can have all those obstacles lead to that pushback, that kick in, or that kickback, pushback, and pull in. All those obstructions do that, right? If you're cutting through concrete, you hit a piece of rebar that can kick it up, get that kickback to you. Cutting through electrical lines, all those types of things, obstructions in the concrete is very common, very serious. Concrete is not all fancy concrete, right? What's below that concrete is not all nice plush dirt, whatever the case is. You know, builders bury all kinds of things in the driveway and cover it up with concrete. So your driveway is 4 inches thick, you end up cutting it 5 inches. What are you picking up in that bottom inch? You know, all kinds of obstacles. Pinch cuts, same things along with a chainsaw, right? That blade can get pinched. Offline cuts, you know, you get offline, you get into something where it pinches it or bites it, right? All those different things can lead into kickbacks and pull-ins, all those types of things. Blunt cutting edges. This is when you're relying on a saw blade having a wrong diamond cutting. So you know, if you don't have a good blade, you know, it's not cutting the way that it should be. So what happens? You know, how does the saw react when that blade is not doing what it should be? The blade is not doing what it should be doing. Same thing when the chainsaw blade is sharp or dull, right? It's not cutting into that wood, starts to smoke a little bit, gets hot, all those types of things, right? And it makes that saw react different. Same thing with the concrete saw. Worn or damaged blades, inappropriate blade, you know, I want to say those are self-explanatory, right? But what happens, right? It vibrates, it wobbles, it shatters, all kinds of things start chipping off of it. All those things can be very, very dangerous. Some of the other risks, the fumes, what you're smelling, in addition to the dust, electrical cables, water and gas pipes, all that stuff within the concrete, within something that you're cutting, all those things. Power cords, you know, you can cut across a power cord, not paying attention to what it is. uneven surfaces, slippery, the vibration of it, um, working alone. I think there should be a law, chainsaws included. If you are using a chainsaw, you need to be with somebody else. If you are using a concrete saw, you need to be with somebody else, because um, you just I feel like the damage can be so catastrophic. Um, you know, Having a partner around is ideal. And then the noise, right? The noise we try to reduce with ear protection, um, but it is a risk of running this saw as well. So this is our saw at the school. It's a Husqvarna handheld. Um, has a water intake. Similar, same type of engine of all of our other engines. Two-stroke engine, more than likely. Pretty sure it is. um, Starts very similar, right? Choke on off, primer plug, um, pull start, all these types of things. This is your safety guard here. Keeps everything from coming back, up into your face. Okay, this could be where your water intake goes into the side of this safety guard and kind of drips down onto your blade. This is your guard here is your to help you take on and off the blade. So this is what it looks like. This is what we'll experience on Monday. Neat little tool, heavy little tool, noisy little tool, but get comfortable with it, and you don't have to fear it, but you get comfortable with it, you understand it, you respect it, and help you do your job. So just kind of going through one of the operating manuals. I couldn't find the operating manual on the one we have. So Stihl had a pretty good operating manual. This is one of Stihl's, very similar to what we just saw, right? Very similar setup. You two hands, right? One on the throttle, the other guiding it. Your safety guard, obviously your blade, how you're going to take the blade on and off. There's your water intake here, your hoses that go up through here that drip water down. Be familiar with your manuals, okay? Read through them. They go through a lot of different things. Husqvarna is the same way, just couldn't find it, right? Tells you how to start these things, tells you how to do fuel caps, tells you how to do everything, right? Tells you how to start them. Just like I say, tell you how to start these things, tell you how to do it right. Look at all the warnings that are on here, right? It's crazy. Crazy to look at all the warnings. This is 120 pages. I'm not going to flip through all of it, but just to look at it, right? I mean, the risk of the kickbacks, all these things that they talk about, right? Where are you cutting? Where are you cutting in on this? Hopefully that's a pipe or something. I mean, that they're trying to show. Are you cutting straight in on there? I mean, that thing's going to kick all over the place, right? So you need to come in on the top of that thing and cut properly. So same thing here when we talked about chainsaws, right? So you're going to have a pinch point. All these things that occur. You have different pipes. If this is a concrete pipe or this is a metal pipe, steel pipe, whatever this kind of pipe is here in the ground, you have to pay attention to how you're cutting that, and where it's falling off, and how you might need to support it, all those types of things, to where that's going to affect the way your saw is the way you will be able to handle your saw, and the reaction of what your saw is going to do. Okay, so like I say, like we've said about every piece of equipment, right? Reading the manual, but the manual is not like I don't know what you want to compare it to. The manual is not like your TV manual, right? How do you turn it on? How do you plug it in? How do you hook up, you know, YouTube and the internet, right? It's not that. These are very specific equipment manuals that tell you safe procedures on how to operate these pieces of equipment properly, to keep you safe, to keep your employees safe, all that type of thing. Respect the equipment, take care of the equipment right, um, so you can go home and see your family and there's no problems, and you can enjoy your job and not be scared of the equipment and not have accidents, all those types of things, right? So we'll go over a lot of that on Monday. We'll see it in person. Everybody will get to be able to cut something and get familiar with that saw. This week we have Michael Cho. It's kind of a voiceover for the science of stage fright. So there's a little science behind public speaking, being on stage. This video kind of goes through that. This is a short video, one of the shortest ones that we have. So I'll click on it here and we'll kind of watch it together. But just as hopefully you're watching these, hopefully you find them interesting. But hopefully you can kind of see where I'm going with them. You have a small presentation at the end for your final. Public speaking, presentations, whatever. The more you do it, the better you get. I don't want to say there isn't any more to it, but as you practice the speech that you're giving, you practice the presentation that you're giving, the better you're going to be at it. The more you do it, more repetitions you get, the more comfortable you become. That's part of it, right? But there is science behind all that, what your body does, how it reacts, all those types of things. So we'll watch this. We'll get to our discussion question 2. Might have to watch a commercial for a second.
I'm sweating, heart racing, stomach knots. You can't cry for help. Not only is your throat too tight to breathe, but it's so embarrassing. No, you aren't being stalked by a monster. You're speaking in public. A fate some deem worse than death. See, when you're dead, you feel nothing. At a podium, you feel stage fright. But at some point, we all have to communicate in front of people, so you have to try and overcome it. To start, understand what stage fright is. Humans, social animals that we are wired to worry about reputation. Public speaking can threaten. Before a speech, you fret. What if people think I'm awful, that I'm an idiot? That fear of being seen as an awful idiot is a threat reaction from a primitive part of your brain that's very hard to control. It's the fight or flight response, a self-protective process seen in a range of animals, most of which don't give speeches. But we have a wise partner in the study of freaking out. Charles Darwin tested fight or flight at the London Zoo snake exhibit. He wrote in his diary, "My willingness or powerlessness is the imagination of a danger which had never been experienced." He concluded that his response was an ancient reaction unaffected by the nuances of modern civilization. So to your conscious modern mind, it's speech. To the rest of your brain, built up to code with the law of the jungle, when you perceive the possible consequences of holding speech, it's time to run for your life or fight to the death. Your hypothalamus, common to all vertebrates, triggers your pituitary gland to secrete the hormone ACTH, making your adrenal glands shoot adrenaline into your blood. Your neck and back tense up, you slouch. Your legs and hands shake as you must prepare for attack. You sweat, your blood pressure jumps. Your digestion shuts down to maximize the delivery of nutrients and oxygen to muscles and vital organs, so you get triangle, butterflies. Your pupils dilate. It's hard to read anything up close, like your nose, but long range is easy. That's how stage fright works. How do we fight it? First, perspective. This isn't all in your head. It's a natural, hormonal, full-body reaction by an autonomic nervous system on autopilot, and genetics play a huge role in social anxiety. John Lennon played live thousands of times. Each time he vomited beforehand. Some people are just wired to feel more scared performing in public. Since stage fright is natural and inevitable, focus on what you can control. Practice. A lot, starting long before in an environment similar to the real performance. Practicing any task increases your familiarity and reduces anxiety, so when it's time to speak in public, you're confident in yourself and the task at hand. Steve Jobs rehearses epic speeches for hundreds of hours, starting weeks in advance. If you know what you're saying, you'll beat off the crowd's energy instead of letting your hypothalamus convince your body it's about to be much for a pack of predators. But hey, the vertebrate hypothalamus has had millions of years more practice than you. Just before you go on stage, it's time to play dirty and trick your brain. Stretch your arms up and breathe deep. This makes your hypothalamus trigger a relaxation response. Stage fright usually hits hardest right before a presentation, so take that last chance to stretch your brain. Approach the mic, voice clear, body relaxed. Your well-prepared speech convinces the loud crowd you're a charismatic genius. How? You didn't overcome stage fright. You adapted to it. And to the fact that no matter how civilized you may seem, part of your brain, you're still a wild animal. A profound, well-spoken wild animal.
Can you get those documents on my desk by 4? I'll get them over to 30. Great.
So, like I say, there is a science, or like Michael Trove says, there's a science behind it. And what helps, right? Practice helps. And knowing your topic, knowing what you're going to say, feeling comfortable with it, all those things are going to help you be successful on the public speaking presentation aspect. So, as we get closer to the final, I think everybody knows their piece of equipment. Start writing down your talking points, start practicing it. As cheesy as it is to stand there in front of the mirror, do it. Looking at yourself makes it more difficult. If you put your phone up in front of you and video record it, makes you feel a different way as well. Sitting in this office that I have in the house with the camera here, talking to no one, takes some getting used to. All those types of things. The more you do it, the better you get, the more comfortable you become. All that is reality. So, as like I say, as we get closer to the final and closer to that presentation, start working on it. Those that practice, those that have their material together, we will be able to see a difference between those that just go out there and do it off the cuff and that type of thing. Okay. So our discussion question this week, first response by Thursday. We've talked a lot about safety, right? And it's been a lot, right? It's been repetitive, but one thing that was mentioned in the tree care, in the chainsaw aspect, in the chipper aspect, the whole point of talking about it is to keep it fresh, to keep it in your mind, to keep it a reality, to keep it on the table, keep it in front of you, however you want to put it. The more you talk about it, the more second nature it becomes, all those types of things. The more that you hold yourself accountable, the more you hold your employees accountable, the more you hold your coworker accountable, the better off we all are. So, like I said, we've talked about all the safety stuff, all the equipment, all the safety, reading the safety manual, all the safety trainings, all those types of things, but when it comes down to safety, what do you think is most important? And why do you think that, right? Is it reading that manual? Is it discussing that operator's manual with your employees, and you guys sitting down when you purchase a new piece of equipment and walk through it? Is that the most important point? There's no right or wrong answer for sure. But, I think it's a good discussion question to see what everybody else is thinking on safety, right? And that's the whole point of what safety is. What are you thinking about? What's the next person thinking about? What are you doing? What's the next person doing? How are we both and all of us collectively, keeping safety at the forefront of what we do, and how we operate each day. So, think about what safety is to you, how you're going to teach it, how you're going to demonstrate it, how you're going to hold your employees accountable, how you're going to hold yourself accountable, how you're going to hold your coworker accountable. Think about all those things, and what is first and foremost to you about safety? Is it you being the boss, or your boss giving you the PPE? Great. Whatever that is, let's discuss it. Let's see what everybody's thinking. I think it'll be interesting to see the different viewpoints. Other than that, I will see you guys on Monday. We will work with the concrete saw and do some cutting and see how well we do. Until then, you guys have a good night.